Hello, and welcome back to You're A Goddamn Cheetah with me, Jenna, the Scorpio Moon Coach. How are you? How are you doing? I had a break last week, which wasn't planned. I just basically kind of forgot to record an episode. I just ran out of time, to be honest. And I think I'm going to start releasing these fortnightly now because it is, just to be totally honest, the weeks are just like flying by at the moment. I think now that the girls or April is back at school, and yeah, we've got back into that rhythm. Like the weeks seem to be really flying by, so I think fortnightly is the best way forward. But yeah, that we've of a time of recording, we've just had a full moon, which was pretty intense for me actually. But at the same time so lovely. And yeah, it was roundabout. Just some random stuff has been happening, guys. That's all I'm gonna say. um and I guess what I really wanted to talk about today was the importance of recognizing your inner child. Mostly because in one recently on the Rebirth of You, which is my group course that I do, there's another round of Rebirth of You about to start or it will be starting in November. So the link is in my bio for all the information on that. But yeah, one of the modules in the Rebirth of You is basically doing a bit of inner child work. And the last week has basically I've reconnected with someone from my childhood, and it's made me realize how much inner child work I have done, but also it's just the most wonderful yet bizarrest feeling to kind of know, like, can reconnect with someone that you knew as a child that kind of saw you in almost like your truest essence, I guess, before all the masks were put on and like people pleasing started and like all of that. And yeah, for the reason inner child work is included in the Rebirth of You is because it really was a massive tool that I used to kind of get myself where I am today. And it really feels like an integral part to my journey, which is, I guess, why I want to share it and just share and like, yeah, and talk a little bit more about it. And it all, I guess I started looking into doing a bit. I didn't even really realize that I was doing inner child work at the time, because it was after the birth of my second daughter, about 3 or 4 months in. I was just going through like a really, really hard patch, and confided in a friend, and then she pointed me in the direction of this amazing therapist called Suzanne. Her Instagram profile is Get You Get Others. She's incredible. And it was through the like some of the first conversations, and I feel like one of the first questions she asked was, like, how was your childhood? And my response was like, yeah, good, nothing to report, just kind of standard childhood. And then, slowly but surely she would ask me certain questions and it would unlock certain memories. And I guess that was the process, or that was the very like initial like groundwork really to me starting to do some inner child work and look back at that smaller version of me with understanding and with compassion, and just to kind of see things through her eyes a little bit more. And then I went on to do a course with Suzanne, which forever will be like a super special time in my life, because it was with like these 6 other amazing humans that were also like on this course together, and we were just all doing our inner child work together. And it like that we had some of the deepest conversations, and it was just such a safe environment to do it. And so, and yeah, and then Suzanne just kind of, we did the work. She explained to us in really like simple and kind of a really simplified way that kind of it made it really easy to kind of get to grips with it all, and as like a foundation, I guess, of how to approach it all. But she basically kind of described, when you are a child, she basically described our brains as like sponges, and like just kind of separated it into 2 halves. One is like the more emotional side, one is more the logical side. And from, you know, from your when you're born until like up until like the age of 11 or so, your emotional side of your brain is so much, that's the active part, that's the dominant part. Your logical brain has not yet developed enough. So as you're growing and you're like in those like early stages, you're just absorbing everything, and you're absorbing all of that as, in quotation marks, right. So whatever kind of behaviors or things that are said to you, or experiences, that happen to you, you're absorbing as right. And so even if they are wrong, or whoever has said anything to you, or like an experience, you're taking all of that in. And when you are a child, you have these, this emotional side of your brain. It has these like emotional foundations in it. So do I feel love? Do I feel connection with those around me? Do I feel safe? Like, do I have like a certain level of like certainty? Like I know, like I have a degree of, I know what's going to happen like day to day, like, so safety. And then the other one is of significance, like an emotional foundation of significance. So essentially, am I good enough? And all of those emotional foundations we're basically, as a child, looking externally for all of those foundational emotional foundations to be met externally. So from our parents, from our caregivers, from teachers, from just like other grown-ups, we're looking for it out externally. And yeah, her description of that really blew my mind, because I actually had no clue about any of that. And then we had to just slowly go through and, like I said, like do the work in terms of, was each of those emotional foundations. So did I always feel safe? Was there always like a degree of certainty? Did I feel good enough? Did I feel loved? Did I feel connected with those around me? And kind of break all of those 3 down, and really look at where they all met. And as like, I remember all of us kind of all going through answering these questions, and each one of us would have broken down into tears at one point. because we basically realized that one of those foundations wasn't met. And not necessarily, and the thing is, it doesn't actually even have to be anything majorly like traumatic that's kind of happened to us, but that could maybe lead to one of those foundations not being met. But it's still significant. It's still massively significant, because when they're not met, that is when we kind of create those limiting beliefs for ourselves that we then bring with us into adulthood. And sometimes they just, we're not aware of it. We're not aware of those things that we have carried into our adult life, because it's almost like gone into our subconscious, and we're not even really aware that it's there, but we have absorbed it into our emotional brain as like, right. And then it's been logged somewhere in this blueprint. And then, then we, as we grow and we like become adults and we just, go on our path, these limiting beliefs, these stories that we tell ourselves that hold us back from doing certain things, are very much linked to or connected with potentially one of those emotional foundations. So love and connection, safety and certainty, and significance. So am I good enough? If any of those weren't met in a certain way, we carry that into adult life. And even just giving myself the time and space to reflect on that and to think which of my own foundations weren't met and how that has contributed to the person that I am today. Because the goal is, so when we're children, we're externally looking for all of those foundations to be met. But as an adult, the task is not the task, but like the goal is, I guess, to actually fill all of those foundation blocks, to fill them all up by ourselves, and to kind of seek all of that internally, which is a point that I'm getting to now, I think. But I just feel it's so important to just to share that information, and to just to have a think back about what memories for you as a child like stand out and are really vivid. Because and it's funny, because I've connected with this person that knew me as a child, that before we had our conversation, there were only, like maybe 3 or 4 memories that I could remember, like very clearly. But that says something though in itself, like why have I remembered them so clearly? Like that means something. So it's to be like explored. But also then talking to someone that I knew back then has then unlocked so many other memories from us kind of sharing our experiences of that time, which has been super interesting. And it's just something to be aware of. And I think as we go through, when this comes out, we're going to be in the waning phase of the moon, which is, that's when the moon is starting to shrink and gets kind of smaller, and it's where we start to go slowly more inwards. So this is, we'll also be then approaching the dark moon, which is very much a time for rest and really going inwards. But also that dark moon is a time, remember, when you tend to feel more emotional and things bubble up to the surface, like we feel a bit more irritable, like we just want to be alone. And a dark moon is always a time to remember that our emotions are like signposts telling us like to listen, and that something needs attention, or that something needs to change in some way. Like our emotions, listening to your emotions is an absolute superpower. And sometimes like emotions bubble up that sometimes we can't even really understand or articulate like why they are bubbling up. And sometimes I do think that actually that could always be these unprocessed emotions that we haven't kind of logically, in our like child brain, haven't logically been able to make sense of. And sometimes they are just, they kind of bubble up and we're just like, well, I have no idea where this came from. And it's, I think, from starting to do and like dig into your inner child a little bit more and just to explore it very gently, this is, I think, how you can start to recognize when sometimes those the emotions that bubble up are actually maybe from childhood or from memories or something that you can't quite logically make sense of, but it's still, the emotion is still coming up and like resurfacing. Yeah, it just felt really, I just really wanted to share that today, and to say that my personal experience of doing inner child work has been to just go so gently with it, because like as a parent, I think doing inner child work whilst you're also parenting is just so hard. Because and I'm sure so many of you will totally relate to this, but oh God, every age that April gets to, she is my mirror. Like I see like younger me in her through her experiences, especially now that she started school. And it's having an awareness sometimes of like, I don't know, like certain worries or fears I might have for her, like at certain points at school, and like having an awareness of like, am I worried for her, or is this like a worry of like, that's kind of resurfacing that maybe I might have experienced at school, and like trying to like differentiate between the two. But yeah, it is just, if you kind of feel called to like start investigating that, just to go really gently and be so compassionate with yourself as you like move through it. And even like a great place to start actually is like, have a thing. I would say, think about what are your, when you think back to you as a child, like what are the instant memories that first come to mind, because they will be significant, because they're kind of locked in. And then just kind of flesh them out a little bit more and see if you can kind of piece together a bit more information, or like how you were feeling, and just a little bit more detail, and even write it down, which like massively helps get so much more information out. And then, you know, consider thinking about, you know, spending a couple of minutes or however long you've got, just really thinking about those emotional foundations. So the love and connection being the first one, safety and like certainty, so that there being like a consistency through your childhood. And then the third one being significant. So did you feel good enough as you were growing up? And just to spend a little bit of time and think about each one individually, and just really like flow with it. I think there's no right or wrong way at all. I think just giving yourself the time and space to think about this stuff is huge, and so important, because even though it is really hard kind of doing inner child work like parallel to parenting, it does give me more self-awareness about how I parent my girls, and how not all the time, because I am by absolutely no way shape or form perfect, but sometimes it does give me awareness of like, okay, this is my shit, and like what they're doing right now actually has nothing to do, like my reaction or what emotions are coming up for me right now, you know, is actually nothing to do with them, like in the situation. I've got, like, if they're having a tantrum or something, like sometimes my reaction to it has nothing to do with them. It's like an inner child thing. It's like an emotion. It's something that's coming up inside of me. And I think just starting to just get an awareness of that is huge. And I think that's a really good starting point, is to, look at those foundations. And then if you're really like not sure where else to start, then maybe do a letter to yourself. Like, think of when you like bring out some photo albums and just like have a look through at old photos of you, and just try and connect back to who you were back then, and like what you were like, and really try and remember that little person and write them a letter. And it doesn't even have to be, it doesn't have to be, what I would say is I would just not even think about what's coming out when you put pen to paper. I just actually, some of the most interesting like journaling I've done, and I actually can't believe I'm saying that, because oh my God, about a year ago I used to absolutely hate journaling, and I was like, ugh, who's got time for journaling? And how I love it. But some of the kind of the best things that have like come up for me, or like aha kind of moments, like, oh, that is definitely a puzzle piece that is just like slotted into place, and I've had like a light bulb moment on something, has been when I've just been like free flow journaling. So I've just put like, dear Jenna, and then I just kind of let my pen go and just let whatever come out, whatever needs to come out, just to let it come out, and not to think that it like this needs to make sense, or there needs to be any like structure in this letter or what have you, or like your writing can be horrendous. Like, it's just like just getting it down pen to paper and just letting it kind of free flow out of you is like really powerful. And then I assure you, if you like have a go at doing that, you'll be, some things will come out and you'll be like, whoa, okay, I didn't know that was there, or I wasn't expecting that to kind of come out. So yeah, I would I'd love to hear if this resonated, or like you're kind of more interested in like doing this like work, and your thoughts on it. And yeah, also to remind you that we do a module on inner child work in The Rebirth of You. And the next round of that is starting on November 13th. So if you want to be involved in that, click the link on my Instagram at Scorpio Moon Coach, and all the details are there. Yeah, that was it. That was it for today. Again, I just really feel like I just need to be talking about stuff that feels really like alive in me at the moment, and just going with it. So I hope you enjoyed that. And yes, I think I'm going to change it to fortnightly now. I think that's the new format, because yeah, once a week is quite a lot, guys. Oh, I've loved this. And thank you so much for listening. Like, it never doesn't blow my mind when I know I feel like I say this at the end of every episode, but I genuinely mean it. Like, when someone says that they've listened to the podcast, I actually kind of still can't really like compute that in my brain. So I'm so grateful that for you listening and for following the podcast, and please like share on your stories, and yeah, tell friends or anyone that you think this would resonate with. And yeah, I'm sending you so much love, and I will see you not next week. I will see you in a fortnight. Yeah, lots of love. Bye.